A utterly unhinged claim from pundit James Hinchcliffe has sparked widespread outrage across the Formula One paddock. The analyst placed Max Verstappen ahead of Lewis Hamilton in his top driver rankings for the 2026 season, ignoring the reality on track and utterly disrespecting the formidable work the seven-time world champion is delivering inside Ferrari. This deeply flawed evaluation completely overlooks transparent telemetry data in a desperate attempt to cover up the severe drivability collapse currently crippling Red Bull racing. Hinchcliffe alleged that Verstappen performs sheer miracles to drag an unpredictable machine onto the podium, yet the hard facts completely shatter that sensationalist narrative. The truth is that the four-time champion has been plagued by critical errors, including embarrassing spins during qualifying in Austria and unforced crashes into the barriers at Miami. His recovery drives only materialize when the team introduces aggressive aerodynamic upgrades to salvage his pace. Framing these frequent driving mistakes as pure heroism merely masks the reality that the Dutchman is struggling to handle a chaotic back-end, suffering from a severe loss of rear grip under heavy braking. While section of the media continues to shield Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton is silencing every skeptic by comfortably occupying second place in the Drivers' Championship standings. The British driver has comprehensively overhauled the operational workflow at Maranello, soundly outperforming Charles Leclerc in race pace and managing battery energy recovery far more efficiently under the new regulations. Hamilton mastered the complex hybrid power unit concept immediately, turning his chassis into an absolute points machine. What the driver gains from this masterclass in adaptability is a genuine shot at an 8th world title, whilst Ferrari loses any lingering excuse not to throw their full weight behind his campaign. The underlying catastrophe at Red Bull stems directly from their volatile active rear wing mechanism. Delays in airflow reattachment when the flap closes cause the floor to lose downforce abruptly, leaving the car dangerously unsettled at speeds exceeding 186 miles per hour. The chassis behaves like an unruly junior category car through high-speed sweeps, snapping unpredictably offline. Rather than acknowledging that Verstappen cannot overcome the severe cooling and drivability flaws suffocating their power unit, the team aggressively pushes the narrative of a heroic driver fighting impossible odds. With Kimi Antonelli currently leading the standings in a dominant Mercedes, the direct comparison between Hamilton and Verstappen highlights an unmistakable shift in the competitive order. Hamilton has reinvented his craft to carry the iconic Italian squad, whilst Max endures the most difficult period of his career under the new technical regulations. A masterclass in tactical deception from McLaren has sent shockwaves through the Formula One paddock, leaving championship rivals scrambling in panic. Whilst Red Bull Racing and Scuderia Ferrari founder under catastrophic stability failures triggered by volatile pivoting rear-wing designs, team principal Andrea Stella has blown the lid off a brilliant Woking engineering masterstroke. By exhaustively mapping competitor aerodynamic flaws, testing the revolutionary Macarena wing concept in Free Practice 1 at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and instantly locking the component away, they exposed the raw desperation hidden inside Milton Keynes. Operating within the grey areas of technical regulations is a legitimate part of Formula One craftsmanship, rather than something deserving of institutional penalties. Yet this brilliant manoeuvre laid bare how rival teams have hidden power outputs out of caution and malice. The terrifying high-speed crashes suffered by Max Verstappen at the Red Bull Ring and Silverstone were never mere driving errors, but rather a structural engineering collapse of the Red Bull 22 chassis. The central actuator governing the rotating wing mechanism creates an airflow blockade that stalls floor reattachment. The moment the flap closes for braking, aerodynamic pressure takes vital fractions of a second to recover, causing the rear end to lose downforce completely and transforming the quadruple world champion into a helpless passenger fighting a car behaving like an untamed junior category machine. Red Bull was forced to hastily shelve the concept, completely paralyzed upon realizing that McLaren had anticipated every trap within this flawed institutional regulation born from arrogant political bickering. McLaren cleverly sidestepped this trap by leveraging wheel-wake turbulence to calibrate the mechanical transition of the straight-line mode well within the 0.4 seconds mandated by the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile. Eschewing flawed 60% scale wind tunnel simulations, the team gathered raw empirical data using trackside aero rakes to master deceleration dynamics. What the outfit gains from this triumph is a predictable chassis capable of conquering the championship battle, while Lando Norris grows increasingly frustrated watching conservative management delay ultimate top-speed delivery. The governing body has already issued severe warnings regarding the thermal degradation inflicted on tyres and the violent load spikes punishing rear axles across heavy braking zones. McLaren is exploiting the legal boundaries of a complex rulebook rather than committing any malicious infraction, outsmarting institutional arrogance through engineering brilliance. The political arrogance of Lawrence Stroll has ignited an unprecedented crisis inside Aston Martin, sending destructive shockwaves through the Formula One paddock. The billionaire blueprint, designed to transform the Silverstone squad into a dominant championship force, has completely collapsed behind closed doors after Audi executed a devastating contractual ambush, firmly blocking the release of Jonathan Wheatley. The former Red Bull sporting director is bound by an ironclad gardening leave mandate that prevents him from taking operational control before 2027. This cunning bureaucratic maneuver leaves executive leadership entirely stranded, exposing a total power vacuum within an organization now spiraling out of control. The signing of Adrian Newey, aggressively hyped as the ultimate salvation for the team, has morphed into an unmitigated operational nightmare. Newey was thrust into the role of interim team principal following the sudden departure of Andy Cowell. Yet the legendary designer does not even travel to the majority of Grand Prix events across the globe. He is a genius of aerodynamic engineering, not a corporate crisis manager tasked with handling fierce regulatory disputes and media grilling. Forcing a technical mastermind to squander precious development hours on administrative politics is a colossal blunder. And whilst trackside figures like Mike Crack and Pedro de la Rosa attempt to improvise on race weekends, the engineering department is left adrift without a coherent, unified direction. Fernando Alonso finds himself trapped in an absolute competitive tragedy, watching his legendary career burn amidst this internal chaos. The double world champion is forced to wring water from a stone while struggling behind the wheel of a chassis crippled by severe axle grip deficiencies and flawed front suspension geometry. Aston Martin has lost critical airflow efficiency along the sidepod channels, triggering dangerous overheating issues throughout the electrical power unit cooling system. What Stroll gains from maintaining this fragmented structure is nothing more than the grand illusion of personal control, whilst Alonso loses every remaining ounce of patience watching rival midfield outfits routinely outperform his troublesome machinery. With Audi holding the reins on Wheatley and demanding astronomical compensation packages to resolve breach of contract disputes, any meaningful restructuring at Silverstone will be stalled until nearly 2028. Blocking this key appointment systematically cripples a direct commercial rival, showing how corporate warfare off the circuit dictates the hierarchy on track. Max Verstappen has dropped a monumental bombshell behind closed doors, declaring himself fully prepared to tear up the lucrative contract binding him to Red Bull Racing through 2028. The four-time world champion triggered a secret exit clause after tumbling to 6th place in the Drivers' Championship during this turbulent summer break. Red Bull executive leadership, plunged into utter chaos by the imminent boycott of their franchise driver, has already pivoted aggressively towards young Oliver Bearman as their definitive long-term replacement. The raw reality that main media outlets refuse to broadcast is that the Red Bull 22 chassis has deteriorated into an unmanageable nightmare on track. The 2026 hybrid power unit suffers from persistent thermal management failures, forcing the high-voltage battery system into emergency protection mode and severely clipping top speed midway down long straights. Furthermore, severe rear suspension geometry instability rapidly degrades tyre life within merely a handful of laps. Red Bull attempted to placate Verstappen by proposing an extraordinary financial renewal stripped of performance conditions, yet the Dutchman remains adamantly unwilling to wrestle a car that behaves like a basic junior category single-seater, firmly rejecting any allegiance to a failing concept. Whilst Ferrari desperately attempts to secure its academy talent, Red Bull launched a ruthless backstage raid to snatch the 21-year-old British prodigy Oliver Bearman directly from Haas. The strategic plan involves embedding Bearman at Racing Bulls before granting him a swift promotion into the primary team outfit. What Red Bull stands to gain from this aggressive maneuver is an immediate operational reset that permanently breaks their toxic reliance on the Verstappen inner circle, whereas the young driver secures instant status as a primary leader. Although Carlos Sainz and Isaac Hadjar remain on the secondary radar, Bearman possesses the exact aggressive driving dynamics needed to compensate for severe floor aerodynamic deficiencies. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile is closely monitoring these explosive shifts, fully aware that the sudden departure of a 4-time world champion will trigger a commercial earthquake impacting global broadcasting agreements and corporate sponsorship contracts worth hundreds of millions. Operational leaders like Alan Perman at Racing Bulls have effectively washed their hands of the fallout, exposing how the escalation inside the primary team has drifted completely beyond the control of Laurent Mekies. The fundamental collapse of technical trust has forced a seismic reshuffle that threatens to dismantle the competitive order entirely.